Hello, everybody. Don't adjust your sets. I am exactly in a different place. It's okay. Uh, this is the Without Context podcast, so you're not going to get any context about this back here. Don't worry about it. I am Decavolty, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Bold and Brash, SharkyHat, and AnxietyLasagna.
As you can tell, it's
And
a bunch of new stuff, new background, new webcam. Haley's got a bunch of suitcases behind her.
it's a bat in the background.
It's a Monday.
It's a Monday.
It's a
as of time of recording.
It's Haley's last Monday with us for a few weeks. But we are going to
for March, right?
Yeah,
just all of March.
I will be leaving sometime a few days after we're recording, and I'll be back mid-March. So I'll probably be back on the podcast by the end of March.
So 4 or 5 weeks it seems, but we're getting some guests lined up and some stuff hopefully set up so we can have some variety and some new faces for everybody to talk to. So
yeah,
it's gonna be a fun little experiment while Haley deals with the wedding stuff. And
like I said, that wrestling episode.
And I don't know if it's just my end or Discord, but it's like choppy frames on both of your guys' videos. So if need be, I'll just get a screenshot and slap you guys on top like we did with me last episode. So
so you're continuing to record, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm still recording. It's just I don't know if it's just my internet or not, but you guys are choppy. So if the people watching this,
no, I'm a little choppy, but it's not like the worst.
I'm just saying, if the people watching this wonder why there's just still images of you two on screen, it's because the quality was just fixed.
I'll give you the still to use. Don't worry.
Fair enough.
I have a cursed one.
I hope you all liked my he's having fun, I swear, picture that I slapped on my video for the last episode. That picture is worth 1,000 words and 1,000 memes.
It really is. So today we wanted to talk about something that it's always been like kind of brimming in the background with the way capitalism unfortunately works. But with the pandemic, it's only gotten worse. And that is our favorite subject, product fatigue. I lost the term for a second there. Product fatigue is when, let's use Magic the Gathering, for example. Magic the Gathering used to do a set during the winter, like around the New Year, and a set during the fall, and they would have like maybe one other set of cards for like experienced players or for a different format or whatever, and they would have like supplemental products here and there. But lately, it's been every 6 months, not even 6 months, every couple of like months, there's previews for the next set that's coming out pretty soon, and the next set, and the next one, and at some point, you kind of just like you lose the plot of like Magic the Gathering after a while, because it's just like, what is this again? What does this card do?
It's a lot, because they do still have their normal like core set releases, but then they started doing all of these like limited edition sets and special sets, and it feels like every month there's a new product being released for Magic in some fashion, whether it be paper or in the digital format on Arena, and it's just far too much to keep up with. And a lot of it is just the cosmetic. It's a different art, it's a different foil, it's, you know, something that is a Magic card for like a different property. Like I think they've said like they're going to start doing Warhammer or Lord of the Rings crossovers. They did like the D&D set crossover. So it's like, it's just cosmetics basically that they're pushing out every few months, it feels like.
So one of the things they're doing this year is they're pushing a set specifically for Modern, set in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yeah.
So like from what I understand, they're going to be unique cards, as a cattail goes under my face.
I love it's just the cattail is the only thing in frame walking across.
From what I understand, it's specifically going to be for Modern cards. Modern is one of the formats of Magic the Gathering that's like older cards, but not like the oldest cards from like the early 90s. And it's just so much, and I don't think they're going to be reprints. I think it's going to be like brand new cards.
Yeah, so you're going to have to get some copies if you're playing in that format and you want to build a deck that involves them. But it's like, it's all their special edition sets with like the new arts. It's Wizards is just pumping out stuff, and it's like people can't afford this because you're also pricing these higher than you normally would, like certain packs and stuff. So it's like, how do you expect people to
these
get
packs? Are going to be $5 each, I guarantee you.
And then it's not only that, but you also have the stuff where it's like the cards in those packs then have their own values, which will make it more of a collector's item. So it's just kind of like, I don't know what the end goal is because it's not player friendly or even the consumer friendly to just push things out every month, hoping people can buy them, especially nowadays. It's just one of those things. I'm like, I don't know.
More of that here in a little bit, I'm sure.
It's wild. I don't know what's happened to them the last 5 years or so, but it's just been set after set.
The thing is, Magic the Gathering isn't the only culprit here. Magic the Gathering is just the one off the top of my head. Dungeons and Dragons is also ramping up production. They've gone from doing maybe a set every couple of years to or maybe one major adventure every year. They're trying to do a new adventure. So I think they had 4 this year.
Yeah, there were 4 books that released this year. They released about 2 or 3 months apart because I picked up all of them. And even now, it's like, hey, here's this re-release of these 2 books that we've already come out with that have new covers and all the wording changes and stuff like that. But also, here's a new book that you can only get with this box set. So if you already own these books, you're gonna have to get either another copy of that book or just wait until this book comes out on its own. And it's just like, that's not
months down the line.
And that's just Wizards. And then you have to think all the third-party companies that almost every month are just putting out product after product. And it's like, I don't know what I want to buy, what I want to use. It's so much.
Have you seen the Spans Codex? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I haven't even finished sorting through it. So, but it can fall into a lot of things. It's not just gaming. It's not just books. I mean, it's TV shows. Something that Kristen and I notice whenever we watch stuff, we have 6 or 7 different platforms that we have access to, and there's just nothing to watch because there's so much on it that you don't even know what to watch anymore. It's like you can start this show, and then it's like you can start show A, and then show B comes out, and it's kind of like the same thing, but it's still different enough. But you're watching, and you're like, I feel like I've already watched this, and then you go to something else, and it's like the show has 4 seasons to it, and it's just like, I don't have the time for this. And you're just like, the things we've constantly gone through is just all these different services, and it's like there's nothing to watch here because there's just so much. It's so much choice paralysis that it's just you don't even know what to start.
I guess for me, my biggest source of product fatigue in the last few years, which has been a very interesting phenomenon within myself, is with Star Wars. I saw my first introduction to Star Wars was 1999 or whenever The Phantom Menace came out, and my dad brought me to see it because he saw he liked the original Star Wars. So he saw that one, and I was like, whoa, this is the coolest movie ever. And then him in the front seat was probably like, we're going to the video store and we're going to rent the original one. And we watched them.
We're going to learn you today.
So we watched them over the course of a weekend. And then I don't remember how many years there was between episode 1 and episode 2, but I
think 2 years, 2 or 3.
Yeah, there was 2 years before we got a new Star Wars thing. And then I never watched the TV show. The art style was not pleasing
the
to
original
the child.
Clone Wars.
Yeah. My child brain was like, this art style is not what I want to look at, so didn't watch it. And then episode 3, and then that came out when I was in the 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade.
Yeah.
7th grade. 7th grade, because the day I saw it was a very interesting day in my life. And which is a story for another day. but then there wasn't like new Star Wars content in like a way that I consumed it. Like I never played any of the video games, or like I read a few of the books in elementary school, but like it didn't become like a pervasive movie thing again until Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And then there was still like, and it feels like ever since The Force Awakens came out, there's like a new Star Wars thing every year. And Force Awakens came out in what, 2015?
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about, because I can see that stretch of time from the Clone Wars cartoon to the new generation of movies. There's just nothing mainstream Star Wars.
Nothing mainstream.
You'll get a game here and there, like they did the Force Unleashed games for like PS3 and Xbox, but I think that was the only like new content for Star Wars that they had gotten in a long time. And then it was like Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker, Rogue One, the Solo movie, 2 TV shows.
Mandalorian, Book of Boba, like,
yeah,
it feels like there's so much Star Wars. And like, I don't know if this is just like a product of getting older, but like, I love Star Wars. Like, it's a core personality trait of mine that like I'm the Star Wars kid, and I'm so exhausted by it that like like I know I'm gonna have to watch Book of Boba because everybody's like, oh my gosh, Haley, baby freaking Yoda's in it. You gotta watch it, because I'm probably gonna need to know what's in it in order to see whatever the next season of The Mandalorian is. But I'm so like, I'm sick of it. Like, I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong. But if I have to like, I guess I'm just not the kind of Star Wars fan that they're marketing towards, because like I could give less of a fuck. Like I could not give less of a fuck about Boba Fett. Like you got eaten in that one movie, and then you popped back up in The Mandalorian, and I was like, okay, that's fine, I guess. And then everybody's like, he's gonna get his own show. Like Obi-Wan Kenobi's getting his own show to like fill in that gap between Ep 3 and Ep 4. And I'm like,
next month.
Yeah, that comes out. That comes out either late April or May. I think they're actually dropping it May 4th.
Like
that's next month, dude.
It's
February.
It's February. March
much.
Is next month.
Like it's a similar thing that's made me like almost like completely walk away from Marvel at this point. Like it's like it used to be like every year we got like a Marvel movie. Yep. Now it's every few months we get a Marvel movie. And now it's every other month we get a Marvel TV show. And I'm just like, I feel like what's happening with Star Wars and Marvel now, which like my feelings with Marvel are complicated for very Haley reasons.
Sure.
But it feels like when Kingdom Hearts was coming out and it was coming across all these different platforms, and I couldn't play the games because I couldn't get a PS2 and a PSP and then a PS whatever and then a Nintendo, like Game Boy, everything. Like there was too much across too many things. So now for me to see all of Star Wars, I not only have to go to the movie theater, watch TV shows only on Disney Plus instead of just like on Cartoon Network or whatever network the Clone Wars was on. And I probably gotta like give a shit about comic books now. Because there's all these comic books now where like, do you want to learn specifically what Darth Vader was feeling like when he saw Padme's grave that one time? No, I don't care.
From the Clone Wars cartoon, the original one, to understand everything up to the current state of Star Wars prior to the 3 sequel movies. It's the original Clone Wars cartoon, the 3D or the CG Clone Wars cartoon, the Bad Batch, which is a spin-off, Rebels, which is a spin-off. And the Clone Wars is like what, 6 seasons of a cartoon?
Yes.
And you
it's
get the
6 seasons books, in like a movie or some shit.
You get the comic books to a degree, because in like Mandalorian is kind of standalone, but to understand a lot of that, you have to watch Clone Wars, and then stuff happens in Boba Fett where you have to watch Clone Wars.
See, my biggest gripe right now, which I think is probably gonna like sick the more feral fans of any sort of genre on my butt, but like At this point, I don't care anymore. I feel like I'm transitioning out of my like desire to be a fan of things and just saying like I enjoy things without participating in a Discord. Is like
simply vibing.
I don't feel like I feel that in order for you to understand a piece of media, you've had to have seen like 16 other pieces of media. Maybe you're just shitty at making media. Like, I don't know if this is just like the fact that capitalism has figured out that they can like wring fanboys dry of every cent that they could ever possibly produce by being like, we can produce a comic book that lets us know what this obscure Star Wars character's color of his underwear is, and then it's canon, and they'll give us a bunch of money for it. And like, I like Star Wars as much as the next person. Do I know what the fuck Clone Wars is about? No. Does it like, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but like, does it really like, do the events of the Clone Wars impact the films in any really meaningful way?
They set the backdrop for the originals, I would say.
But does it like,
because the Clone Wars the Clone War cartoon is everything between episode 2 and episode 3. So it's Anakin training his Padawan. It's who's a character that shows up in Mandalorian. So it's like it's all this history.
But I saw all the prequel movies and never have seen a minute of the Clone Wars, and I understand the plot of Star Wars just fine without having to invest God knows how many hours.
You got to go deeper, Haley.
No, you don't. Like I think
no, you don't.
I used to be the kind of person that would go deeper. Honestly, like if this Star Wars renaissance had happened when I was in like middle and high school, who knows what kind of person I would be now. But it seems like there's just a point where in this, I think it's fully because Big Daddy Disney owns this stuff now. They own Marvel and they own Star Wars. They're like, how much money can I wring out of these fandoms? And and it's become like a dick measuring contest to be a fan of Star Wars or Marvel. And I'm too tired to be participating in dick measuring contests over things I don't have to like this kind of stuff. My life will function just as well without having to be like, oh man, have you seen WandaVision and also this other thing and also 7 other Spider-Man movies in order to watch this other Spider-Man movie, which you need to know to be able to do this Doctor Strange movie? Like,
I was about to talk about that because it's like it's a different thing for me because I grew up watching like all the Marvel properties as they came out, like from original X-Men to Fantastic Four to Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Like that was just movies I grew up with at the time. And now it's like, to understand this Doctor Strange movie, it's all of the MCU leading up to that point, 2 of the TV shows, and also now all of the X-Men movies and all the other Spider-Man movies, and it's like if you came into it late, you have a lot to catch up on. But if
that isolates people who are wanting to just like get into these movies, like I specifically feel terrible because like my fiance wanted to go see whatever this last Spider-Man movie is. But I haven't watched a Spider-Man movie since the first Andrew Garfield film because I'm like, how many times can I watch Uncle Ben die until I get it? And just, I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man. Like, I get it, not for me. And to be able to even watch the first 2 Andrew Garfield, or not Andrew Garfield, who's the latest one? Tom Holland?
Tom Holland.
We would have had to have bought like 2 different streaming services just to watch those 2 films before I could see this other film. And he's like, oh, and you probably won't get it because like the last Marvel movie I suffered through was freaking Endgame. And I hated every second of that film. It was too long. But I've had to tap out because like I just don't have the emotional capital to invest in Marvel anymore. Like I watched WandaVision, loved WandaVision, watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier, cool. watched Loki, but now there's too much going on, and I'm just like, for something I'm paying money to consume that's like not a necessary part of my day, there's too much. I'm too tired. I'm not gonna like do homework assignments for leisure. That's not a thing I'm doing anymore. I feel like all I'm doing is just being angry, and I'm sorry, I'm tired. Like literally
No.
tired.
This is good.
I think it comes down to the person, because it's like saying like if you're coming into it late, like if you're just some kid in like their teens or early 20s and you're like coming into Doctor Strange and then you're seeing, Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier from the X-Men movies on there, and you're like, oh, I haven't seen those. But then you go back to like the Fox X-Men movies, and you're like, you see two different series of X-Men movies. You see the original one with Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman, and then you see the younger generation where they were like teenagers and stuff like that. It's like, oh shit, how much? And then all those movies somehow tie together too. So it's like, how many movies do I have to watch? But
too many movies.
If you're like me and you just committed to it, you committed to the meme the whole time. It's just like,
it's interesting because I remember once on my social media I linked one of the some absolute wild child who like put together the MCU from the beginning to like where they were before Shang-Chi, and like that person was doing God's work, and now all of their work has just been undone with the Multiverse of Madness, because now the Fox MCU is canon. Now you have to watch the other Spider-Man from Sony.
Both series of Spider-Man, theoretically, at least one series of the X-Men movies, and whoever else they decide to throw in. Because the thing is, like, there can be a bunch of cameos too. So,
like,
for sure, there's already cameos.
I feel like, I don't know if product fatigue exists in spaces outside of like fandom, because like I don't operate in those spaces. Like, is there product fatigue for like, I don't know, stock portfolio stuff? I don't know. But it just feels like capitalism got whiff that like, oh, these people who like things to do in their spare time, we can milk the, like, I'm gonna keep saying this, like, we can milk them for every cent that they have by just throwing more and more and more and more crap at them, and they're gonna num 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 eat it up, because we're like, these spaces aren't used to having like mainstream give a shit about them. Like, there's people I talk to who are in their like 40s and 50s who are like, the fact that the biggest movie that's ever been made now is a Spider-Man movie blows their mind. Like 20 years ago, that would be heinous. Like when Iron Man came out, like when Iron Man came out, never did I ever think that this like fun little Robert Downey Jr. movie that I saw in high school would lead me to having like an existential crisis about like what it truly means to be yourself while watching freaking Loki, or like how they're making Wanda into a villain for doing the same thing that Doctor Strange has apparently done, because I couldn't give less of a fuck about Stephen Strange. That dude's an asshole. And you want me to sympathize with him over Wanda over my goddamn dead body.
They even call that out in the trailer that dropped yesterday. It's like, you do it and you're the hero, I do it and I'm the enemy, and that's not fair.
He does it. He does it because like something mildly inconvenient happened to him. She did it because like her and like everyone she's ever loved gets murdered, and every home she's ever built gets taken from her, but she's the asshole. But I digress. We're talking about product fatigue.
I think the real thing behind it isn't just capitalism and their ability to know that people will want it. It's the technology available to us now. If you were to do this on TV, it probably wouldn't be as well received, and you can't just keep throwing movies out 20 years ago. But now, since they have these dedicated services and it's like, hey, we need content, they have 2 or 3 shows being produced at a time now. So it's like, drop 8 episodes, wait a few months, another show of 8 episodes. It's they have this, since it's their platform, they now have this constant flow of, we put something out, subscribers come in, we put something out, subscribers come in. It's an ease of access, I think, is really what's doing it these days.
That is an extremely interesting point you bring up, because when I was thinking about this, when Deca and I had an initial conversation like off camera about this, I was thinking about how like we were talking about Critical Role and how like I'm not as excited about The Legend of Vox Machina as I thought I was going to be, because I'm just so goddamn sick of Critical Role right now. There's
it's really what inspired the conversation
right now. And like I'm a big fan of Critical Role, but there's so much coming out for it right now that I'm just like, okay, I need a 15-minute breather. But I was thinking about what have I done to replace all this media that I used to consume. Like, I used to be an avid Star Wars movie watcher, haven't watched those movies in years. Same with Marvel. Used to like be in line for every Marvel movie. Doesn't happen. My new thing I do now is read books. Because how are you going to have product fatigue with books? Like, it takes time to write and edit and submit a book and then publish it and then have it come out. And my brain's like, or I'm thinking as you were saying that, I'm like, that's why I'm suddenly into books now. Because how am I going to get product fatigue for a book?
I think the issue with, I think that's what happened with me. I like Critical Role. I still like the show and everything. I don't watch it as often because it's dawned on me that it is a 3-hour movie every week to watch. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what really did it for me, is the time commitment each week to sit through an episode.
For me, it's less that, because like I'm much better about watching movies than watching TV. My brain hates having to sit through a TV series, and I have no idea why. So like if I get to watch a movie once a week, fantastic. I think where I'm getting worn out on Critical Role is I'll speak to Campaign 1 specifically, because that's the only one that I really know.
Yeah.
I've watched that full campaign 6 to 7 times from start, like Briarwood arc to finish. Like the videos, like not like the podcast or just like whatever, watched it. I know everything that happens in it. It's fun, it's comfy, it's my favorite of the campaigns. But all of a sudden, there's all this extra shit now. Vox Machina Origins. Okay, now not only do I have to consume all of this stuff you've given to me in the campaign, in order for me to have the full story now, I have to buy this other stuff. Oh, now there's a TV show that slightly changes things. So now I'm like, okay, now I have to like have 2 different file folders on like this version, this version. Campaign guide. Oh, now we got a bigger campaign guide. I'm like, how much shit do I have to know about something in order to like it? And I'm starting to get tired. Like now and then they're doing the same with campaign 2. Mighty 9 Origins. And I'm like, how long until campaign 3 gets its own origin stuff? Like, it's just too much.
So truthfully, because campaign 1 has a fleshed out beginning, or when they did the pre-stream, and then a fleshed out ending, you really don't. You watch from, like you said, the Briarwood arc to the end, and you've got Critical Role. You've got campaign 1, you're good. The second campaign and going forward from that, however, I think is going to get much more media intensive, starting with the I know they're doing a collab with Dungeons & Dragons themselves, because they're doing Cave of the Netherdeep or whatever.
They're doing Call of the Netherdeep. It's a adventure set in the Critical Role world. So.
And it's set in Wildmount.
Yeah.
So I think from the second campaign and moving forward now, we're going to get a lot more stuff. And if you thought an animated series was the beginning, oh boy.
And this might be a controversial thing to say, but and like this might even be like borderline boomer energy, but like and this is not directed at any specific piece of media. This is just like how I feel about certain things generally. Whatever happened to having a self-contained story in like one piece of media? Like,
We talked about that.
We did talk about that. I think it's just people who run the studio or the publishing company, they want the ability to keep getting a return on investment for it. If I were to write a book, standalone, start to finish, open, close, no room for any kind of continuation, they would probably still sell it, but they would probably come to me sometime later. It's like, hey, can you write a sequel? Can you continue, this story? Because I know they do that with movies. I know a lot of movies in the past have had like an open and shut, story that they've wanted to tell. And then it's like, here's the sequel. It's a different director, a different writer, because the original guy was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to continue the story. So.
And I don't know if that's like what you were saying earlier, Sharky, that like there's new ways that we're consuming content, like our desire for content's never been higher, and like that's why these like what I feel could be self-contained stories are now like getting out of control and you're getting product fatigue. Like I feel like it just boils down to just greed over good storytelling in
for
some
sure.
Of these.
Oh, like, in a lot of cases, yeah.
To loop back to like Magic the Gathering, like I don't know if there's any sort of like overarching narrative or like any sort of like
there is.
narrative.
It's
like,
complicated.
I figured I was built a green deck in college and just summoned the animals and made them run people over. And
it's like full on MCU before the MCU was conceived. It's like these 12 sets are a story, and now here's the 12 sets of another like Avenger style story.
And like if you're having like burnout on like cards, because this is like just like a virtual and an in-person trading card game.
Card game, yeah.
Card game. How long until there's a Magic the Gathering show or a Magic the Gathering?
It's already in the works.
Like it happened with League of Legends. Like League of Legends was video games, and then they got a spin-off video game, the like auto chess thing.
What was
and
it?
Now it's a TV show.
The moment Riot Games was bought by Tencent, I think they were like Valorant, Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra, and a show. Like instantly money was injected and a bunch of other things were pushed into the pipeline to be made.
And it's an interesting point that like our demand for content has never been higher, especially with like quarantine where we're not able to do like outside touching grass types of things as much. And our ability, like the platforms for which we can consume content has never been more diverse than it is now. So like they need to put things onto it. So they're going for like low hanging fruit of like, oh man, Star Wars people will watch any fucking Star Wars thing. If you have it be like EU stuff from like all the unauthorized novels from like all of time, they're gonna freaking beat their meat over it. Like, oh my god, make a Spawn show and they'll lose their minds.
That's the thing that Disney's doing. When Disney bought Lucasfilms, I think it's Lucasfilms or LucasArts, it was the company that owned Star Wars.
Lucasfilms.
They were like,
LucasArts was the video games.
They were like the movies, the 6 movies, the cartoons are the only things that are canon.
Mm-hmm.
All the books that were written, all the old comic books, that stuff is no longer canon to them.
It never was.
But then you'll see watching Mandalorian, you'll see watching Boba Fett that they're taking aspects from that non-canon stuff and throwing it in now. You brought up Thrawn. Mm-hmm. Thrawn was mentioned by name. He exists. Yep. So it's like, okay.
He was in Rebels.
He's in Rebels. So it's like, okay, so you haven't erased it all. You've just taken what fans want, and now you're putting it into a form that they can appreciate.
I was like, what's Rebels?
What is Rebels?
What is Rebels?
It was like 2 seasons. It was like 2 seasons, right?
So,
Yeah,
it's a 2-season show. It's a 2-season.
It's a 2-season. It's a filler series.
Yeah, it takes place.
I've gotten to the point where like with myself, in order to like achieve inner peace or whatever, the only like I love Mandalorian, it's great. But like when I think like Star Wars, I think episodes 1 through 9 love them or hate them, that is Star Wars. And everything else is like when you go to Cold Stone Creamery and they're like, here's your menu item. Would you like to add other things to it? And I'm like, I could add all this other stuff, but I could also just enjoy this delicious ice cream the way you present it to me as is listed on your menu. And I've just had to kind of just like cut myself off and just like, you know what? I'm going to drive myself into the ground trying to just like fit through these gates of like, you're not a real Star Wars fan if you haven't watched apparently whatever this Rebels thing is. Couldn't give less of a shit about whatever Rebels is. Like, does it affect those 9 movies that I've been watching for my whole life? No, I don't care then. It's MCU. MCU for me, I was like, metaphor. You know what? Endgame feels like a good place where I stopped. Where it's like, yup, the guy that got me into the MCU no longer is a part of that. I think from this point, this is when I'm like, the stories that I grew up loving have come to their natural conclusions. Everything else is just added jimmies to your freaking sundae, and I don't care. I like my sundae the way it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that a lot of people are going to learn eventually when product fatigue hits them. And like, at least in that sort of thing, like the Magic the Gathering cards coming out every so often is like a different discussion on like, how much can you reasonably expect people to buy in to a game in order to like be competitive or something? That's a different conversation, but like,
I easily dropped 5. I played Magic for 8 years, 9 years consecutively. I probably dropped close to $5 or $6 grand on the game.
And like if that's what it takes for you to have fun, do it. But like,
I didn't have any fun.
I feel like you guys tell me about things that you spend money on, and then you tell me how much you hate them, and I'm just like, then why are you spending money on
them? It's an abusive relationship.
I mean, I say that as I have.
You went to college for 2
again.
years.
Yeah, I was gonna hold on a second here. Who are we really fooling?
I think for me, like, product fatigue has impacted me by I've changed the way that I consume content now.
Yeah.
I gravitate towards stories with closed loops, or content by the nature of how it's produced comes to be slower, like books. Like, I'm obsessed with the freaking Court of Thorns and Roses books, but a book just came out last year and we're not going to get another one for another year or two. There's apparently a TV show in the works, but I'm probably not going to watch it because I don't care. And like, so I've changed.
Honestly, like that's one of the most liberating things you could really say as a consumer is that I don't care about this.
I feel like my attitude of I don't care has come trial by fire through the art of gatekeeping. And I can speak specifically to Star Wars on this one because I tried so hard in my younger, stupider years to try and be good enough and like a good enough Star Wars fan in order to feel like I'm allowed to operate in like fandom circles. Until one of my close friends, which like I haven't ever told them this story, so I won't give any information about this person away. But we were talking about the sequel trilogy and how this person absolutely hates them. I enjoyed the first 2 of them. The third one's kind of a train wreck, but it is what it is at this point. And the person I was talking to was like, its ultimate cardinal sin was like killing Han Solo. And I made a joke of like, fuck that guy. Han Solo sucks. I hate that guy. And like, how you're not even a real Star Wars fan if you don't like Han Solo. And in the moment, there was that just like, oh God, we've done it again by like having an opinion. It makes us a bad fan. And then I sat with that feeling for a few minutes. And then I went, just wait till you hear about how I feel about Yoda. Fuck Yoda. Hate that little green bastard. He's the worst. And they're like, how can you even say that when your favorite character is Kylo Ren? I'm like, I never said he was a good character. He's just my favorite.
He's a stinky
he's a
little shit
bitch baby. And I'm like, I know. And I love him. Like, once I kind of went through that trial of like, no matter what I do, I'm gonna be a shitty, not real, fake fan to somebody. And I was just like, I don't care. Like, I liked the Marvel movies because Loki is the single greatest, like, God, I would die just to, like, be in the same room as Loki Laufey-san. Same with, like, like, Tony Stark. Like, I would let Tony Stark punch me in the fucking mouth. And I'd say, thank you, Mr. Stark, as I'm picking up my teeth off the floor. Like,
and he would.
And he would do it. And, like, if that makes me, like, a loser, lame Marvel fan, then, like, I don't care. As you can tell, Infinity War and Endgame were really rough periods of time for me, and I think that's what made me step away. I'm like, cool, my 2 favorite characters are gone.
You know what?
And, like,
you know what ruined
Deuces.
the third Star Wars? I liked Force Awakened because I liked the road that they started.
Mm-hmm.
And then Last Jedi came out, and it was obvious that the directors and the writers didn't talk to each other about what the end goal of the new trilogy was. So they kind of had to hodgepodge it together. So that one kind of gave me like a weird feeling because I was like, it's not going the way that I thought it was going. But the absolute point that ruined the third movie for me was finding out that Palpatine fucks. So once that hit, I was like, I'm out. Like, yeah.
See. Here's, I know this is like diverting for product fatigue, but I promise this is relevant.
Yeah.
If someone were to hold a gun to my head right now and said, say your favorite Star Wars movie, I would say unabashedly The Last Jedi. And that is a very controversial opinion to have. And I would get such shit from people I thought were my friends about, they're like, you just like that because there's like shirtless Kylo Ren in it. And I was like, no.
Right.
That is a factor.
The man has his belt pulled up to his belly button.
Like, it's not a cute look. But for me, that movie felt like the closest thing to like how I felt watching Star Wars as a kid. Like this odd molding of like the campy space adventure of the original 3, and the like soap opera in space of the next 3, the prequels or whatever. And I don't care. And here's like that movie, Rian Johnson, who I will defend to the death. I think I liked Force Awakens too, but I think that J.J. Abrams is overall like not my favorite director. And he kind of like had like a bunch of tiddlywinks on the ground of like, here's all these things we could do. And then Rian Johnson saw it, was like, okay, yeah, let me organize it because no one gave me any direction, so I'm just gonna do what I can. And then when J.J. Abrams came back, he like messed up all the tiddlywinks again, but here we are, whatever. One of Rian Johnson's major influences for The Last Jedi was, apparently this is on record, but don't quote me for it, Pride and Prejudice. What is Haley's favorite movie in the whole world? Pride and Prejudice. And you're going to look at me and be like, why is The Last Jedi your favorite Star Wars movie? Because it's Pride and Prejudice in space. And once I started getting like people that I liked telling me that I was a garbage Star Wars fan, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just lean into it. I'm a garbage Star Wars fan, and I'm gonna be garbage because like I don't care about Clone Wars. I don't care about Solo. I hated Rogue One. You could put me on the record for it. I thought that was the worst Star Wars movie that's ever been made ever because it wasn't a Star Wars movie.
This podcast is
you are being put on record.
I'm on, like, you can put it into the federal record, put it on my permanent record that I think Rogue One is a trash film, and you can fight me about it.
Permanent record.
How many episodes do you think it's going to take before we get put into the Library of Congress for being culturally significant?
Whatever. And I have deliberately chosen to no longer participate in the stupid, like, deluge of Star Wars stuff. Like, if I want to watch it, I'm gonna watch it. If I don't, I'm not, and you're not gonna make me feel bad about it anymore. If I can survive having The Last Jedi be my favorite Star Wars movie, I can survive this stupid fandom. Sorry, my tirade is over.
Well, see, the thing is, I think that's something that's going to be happening, though. I think that Star Wars fatigue is going to be like the next thing. I know a lot of people have Marvel fatigue now, even though we had, I think, like a year and a half of nothing after Endgame for the most part. I think it's now going
Black Widow. What do you mean?
Yeah, we did have Black
there
Widow.
Was Black Widow.
That's a joke.
There was.
But that came out.
All the TV
that didn't go to
shows.
Theaters. Yeah, but I think those I think all of those were like a year after Endgame. I think there was actually like a break between Endgame and current things. But I think Star Wars.
To be fair, after Endgame was a literal pandemic.
Yeah, I think Star Wars is going to be that next thing though, because how Mandalorian and Boba Fett feel tying into like the old cartoons and everything, it feels like they're setting the stage for the Avengers style series build up to something, which I think may be Thrawn. So I feel like because the thing is, Jon Favreau is heavily involved with the Star Wars properties now, and he did Iron Man. He started that. So I think they're having him recreate that scenario for Star Wars now rather than Marvel.
Just keep Joss Whedon out of it. Oops, sorry.
No, he can stay out.
No, you're right. You should say it. No, continue. You're right. You should say it.
No, I don't know if this is just because I'm turning 30, but I'm too old to have to care about so many things for what I do in my free time. Like, it used to be like the biggest exciting part of like when I went and saw episode 3, I looked forward to it for like months. When they announced it, I was like, oh, the next movie. And now they're like, here's 7 TV shows. And I'm like,
yeah, like what's down the line? It's like Boba Fett just finished. I think it's like we have Kenobi. There's a show for Cassian Andor from Rogue One, like prior to Rogue One.
Oh my fucking god!
There's a show called The Acolyte, which I think is going to be focused on like a Sith Jedi. I think Ahsoka is getting her own show. So it's like here's all these shows that are probably going to Avengers together into a single thing.
Do you want to know why? It's because they're all owned by Disney. I'm just gonna fucking say the name. I don't give a shit. What are they gonna do?
Come after me? Big Daddy Disney.
The thing is, I think it is just Disney and their practices because they picked up Fox. We know that they bought out Fox and everything. The moment they got the rights from Fox and all their properties, Disney was like, Marvel, make us an Aliens comic. And then they're like, hey, we're going to put an Aliens TV show on Fox. It's like they're now having these Aliens properties come out. They're just using their franchises to just, I guess, flood every form of media just to keep it relevant to a degree.
I think there's also something to be said about like buckshot. Like, just fire a bunch of different things and see what sticks.
What's the it's like Todd Howard banning people in Fallout 76 in that one video. He just puts on the blindfold and cocks a shotgun. Just I think I've shared that picture with you guys, just the Todd Howard in the suit with the shotgun. It's like this is how he bans people. He just fires randomly.
Speaking of video games, like I know we've talked heavily about like films and TV, but we started talking with like Magic the Gathering. Is there a sort of product fatigue in any sort of like major gaming franchise where where it feels like every year there's a new this game or like every year there's
the flagship games for companies, every year a Call of Duty, every year a Battlefield, every year a new Madden, a new wrestling game, a new NBA game, and it's like minimal changes. It's stuff that they can just release a patch to change it. But I think the biggest culprit is probably the live service games, the ones that you play and it's like, hey, every few months we're going to drop new content, just keep playing. That kind of stuff I think is where the real fatigue comes in, because you're like, oh, I have to play this game all the time because they just put out new content. So if I want to play this other live service game, I have to figure out like which to focus less on, kind of thing, because it's like, hey, both these games are just getting constant streams of content a lot of the time. Like with me,
do you mean gacha games?
Like me, it's Destiny 2. It's every 3 months there's a new season, which means new content, new activities, and then every year there's a new big expansion. So it's like it just keeps me every week. They're like, hey, here's a new thing, here's a rotation of events and stuff. So it's like keep playing. And even now, it's like I'm 2 weeks until the next big expansion comes out. I finished everything that I wanted to finish, so I'm just like, I'm walking away from this game for 2 weeks.
There's a liberation in just like drawing a line for yourself where it's like, I can enjoy this piece of content or media or story or whatever without having to do all of these extra steps. And I think I've gone really drastically in that direction because I've just decided to like, I watched Shang-Chi because
It's great.
I wanted to support that film, and it didn't feel like a Marvel movie until like the very end that I'm like, ah, damn it, I am watching a stupid Marvel movie. But it was going so good until that giant fucking dragon thing, and I'm like, ah, damn it, here we are in the Marvel film.
There it is.
Just the it's just the finger snap is Feige again.
But like, I was able to watch that film without needing any prerequisites for it. Like, I feel like I'm in fucking college half the time trying to watch a Star Wars or a Marvel. It's like, oh, in order to take fucking Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, you need the following prerequisites. And I'm like, I'm not trying to sign up for Orgo 2 Lab. Like, no, I'm trying to give you money to watch a movie. Now I'm going to give my money to somebody else where it's like, cool, I can be in and out in 2 hours with a completed story and move on with my freaking life.
Shang-Chi, I think, was a refreshing difference because it was so standalone from everything else. Like, they had references to other movies, but you didn't need to. It didn't do anything to affect the plot at all. It was the movie drove itself forward.
It's very self-contained.
And I'm hoping future shows do that. Like, we're getting Moon Knight, who is going to be pretty disconnected from everything else because he's not involved with everything, at least from what we know.
What did they say about violence? There's going to be some kind of like
violence
in that show.
Yeah, it's so he's a very brutal superhero, so they're going to try to keep that. But then you have stuff.
It's because he has mental illness.
But then you're going to have stuff. Then he doesn't have. It's not. Okay, it is mental illness. It's a dissociative identity disorder. Where he's like, but then you get a show like that who's a standalone hero, but then you have a show like Iron Wars, which is coming out, which focuses on Rhodey, and it's like, okay, so you have to understand the Iron Man movies, you have to understand what happened in Spider-Man No Way Home when they confiscated all of Stark's stuff. It's like you have to have these pieces of previous movies to kind of set the plot up for what's going on in these newer shows. Like, you can't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier by itself. Like, you have to kind of understand the context going into it, why he has a shield, why it's important to him. So
they mention it offhand in the series, but you're like 3 episodes in at that point.
Yeah, it's like the 3rd episode they really give you like a rundown of stuff for people who came in late, but it's like, I want more shows that don't have to do the homework. It's cool if that character comes back later, but it's like, if that character's entire story is based on the events of 3 preceding movies, it's going to be difficult to get people to watch it, or at least to appreciate and understand it.
You were saying they're making a show starring Rhodey.
Yeah.
My question is, who has watched even just the Marvel movies to date and said, you know what I'd like? A whole TV series about Rhodey.
I think they're doing is, I think they're getting the most out of the actors while they can still play the roles. And as long as those actors, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm saying if the actors like the role, good for them. If Don Cheadle wants to play Rhodey until the day he dies, let the man. Like, if he loves that character. But it's definitely like,
for him,
we have these supporting characters. Let's see how they're reacting to things. Let's see how Rhodey's life is after Tony's gone. Let's see how that all is going to. So like, they have all these things that they can keep building on, and that's what they're doing. They just keep building. They don't stop and level it out and then, start over. They just keep packing stuff onto each other. Because then from Iron Wars and Iron Man, you have the show Ironheart about the girl who is inspired by Tony Stark to make her own suit. So it's all
like
these,
that one. That one's interesting.
And things. I hope she's a young Avenger. Like I really hope they're building towards young Avengers with all like the teen heroes. But again, that's the thing. You're going to have to watch all these other things to understand Young Avengers. It's just this. It's a self-fulfilling cycle of we're going to make this thing to introduce a new concept, but that concept's going to have to be built on top of other past stuff, and then it's just continually going and going and going.
It's at some point it's going to be an Ouroboros just eats itself because it can't.
Yeah,
can't eat anything else. But
I know.
I think to close off. Yeah, I think to close off this, I want to say, just watch what you want to watch. Don't feel compelled. Don't feel gatekept by somebody else to be like, yeah, I have to watch all of these things. If you want to consume all that media, go for it. Love you for it. Have fun. Come back in like 6 months and tell me what you thought.
The easiest thing to do is actually to find a like 15-minute video on YouTube that will just run it down for you before you go and watch it.
Yes. Shout out to Comic Historian.
Yeah, you'll find people on YouTube. It's like, here's the entire MCU in 15 minutes. So
I got Comic Historian. I've got Comics Explained. I've got all these people who will tell me the major comic arcs so that I can prepare myself for all of these movies. I'm good to go. I don't need to watch every single series.
If that mad lad who did the entire MCU scene by scene in chronological order is suffering right now because of the Fox edition, I feel for you, but I really hope you finish that project too. So
yeah, Godspeed, my dude. You're doing the Lord's work.
And if you're like me, where like there's too much homework to even just like continue to exist in whatever space, like it can, like the things that you already like can continue to bring you joy without you having to keep going. Like I will love watching Thor Ragnarok and like all the Iron Man movies and like all the MCU movies that I like watched back in the past, but not keeping up with that rat race has allowed me to explore new storytellers and new perspectives on and like new types of content that have brought me just as much, if not more, joy than the things that I had been enjoying for the like earlier parts of my life. So like, don't feel like you have to just keep riding the Star Wars, MCU, Magic the Gathering, whatever train, if it no longer serves you. So there's so much content in the world. Do whatever you want.
If it doesn't bring joy out of your life, recondo that bitch.
That shit. Same brain cell!
Dang, I love you, Haley. I'm gonna miss you this month.
All right,
miss you guys. It's gonna suck.
I guess that is a good place for us to call it for this episode.
Recondo that shit. That's the episode.
So, thank you all for joining us on this episode of the Without Context podcast. Haley, it has been a great 25 episode streak. We're going to miss you for the next few episodes, but like we keep saying, the bonobos will be steering the ship, and we will get this done.
I'm excited to have new perspectives on here and topics.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We're putting a list together of guests that we want to get onto the show. I have friends that are fellow content creators. Deca has friends that are fellow content creators or people who are in positions in the gaming industry. We have, some female streamers that I would like to get in here to have a perspective on, sit and talk with them about, that side of it. Because as male streamers and content creators, we face completely different sets of criticism all the time. And it's just interesting to see, both sides of things. But we're definitely going to find time and find people to fill the space without you while you're gone.
And you can finally have
much like the MCU, the show must go on.
And she's going to come back married.
No, that's not true.
Oh, no, that's not for a while.
I will be coming back.
This is the pre-married stuff.
Oh,
this is getting stuff together. I'll be taking another break in May, and then at that point, I will be coming back married. I will be coming back probably in desperate need of therapy, but we'll be here.
We'll be here for you. I can't provide therapy, but I can provide catharsis, and that's close enough.
We are not licensed in any way, shape, or form, unless you count this piece of
no,
paper.
Go get therapy.
Absolutely. Unless you
please get help.
A piece of paper that I wrote, I'm a therapist on. So.
Without Context podcast.
Thank you all for watching. As always, our links and everything are in the description, both on YouTube and on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, please follow, please share it. We would definitely like to get those numbers up. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not. I don't know why you would keep following this channel if you weren't subscribed. That seems kind of weird, but
a little weird.
Because we only want to upload one episode a week, so it's not like we're flooding your notification box.
We are not Disney.
We are not Disney. We're not going to hit you with product fatigue yet. So
yeah, give it time.
But as always, I am SharkyHat, joined by Decavolty and AnxietyLasagna. And at least Deca and I will see you all next week. So goodbye, everybody.
See you in a bit.
Bye.